it really depends on whether or not you're happy about leaving or whether or not you're unhappy about leaving. If you're happy about leaving, then there's certain conventions that are fairly simple to follow. If you're unhappy, though, you have to be very careful about the wording you use so that you don't prejudice your rights. So if you're happy about leaving your employment, let's say you have another job lined up, or you're moving on to something else, or after a very long time you really wish to retire, you win the lottery, then at the end of the day, it's important that it just has a couple of features. You want to have the date of the resignation, you want to have any housekeeping items, how you're going to finish things up at the end. You want to address it to the supervisor that you wish to tell, and it's best to go to that supervisor and give it to them personally, thank them for working there, and then you'd be leaving. Resignation is quitting, which means that you're not going to get any compensation. It really prohibits your ability to sue afterwards. So a lot of people leave their job not necessarily because they've won the lottery, unfortunately, but because they don't feel safe, their boss is harassing them, or they feel they've been marginalized. In those cases, people feel compelled to resign, but they aren't really resigning because they want to go someplace else. And it's important in those cases for people to be very careful with the language they use in a resignation letter, because it could very well be used against them later if they wish to make a monetary claim against their past employer. The fact of the matter is that if an employee feels like, if they're leaving, being forced out, it's very likely that they can argue that it's a constructive dismissal and that they were forced to leave their employer. Therefore, their employer would owe them compensation. If there's a constructive dismissal, then that person would be owed a reasonable common law notice to assist them in getting a new job. The test I tend to ask is whether or not someone has a new job lined up. If someone is leaving a job, they don't have a new job lined up, they really can't stand to be in the job anymore, then it's obvious that that person is to some extent being forced out. People like working, and generally having that money is important for them.